Alright. Hello again. This is kind of just planned at the last moment. A friend of mine suggested that I do a video about Asperger's and stereotypes about Asperger syndrome. And it's an interesting topic to do because it seems like in recent years portraying Asperger syndrome and emulating Asperger syndrome in movies and TV and this and that has become kind of the popular, hip thing to do. So, even though this video might not be very original or even very planned out for that matter, expect a lot of screw-ups with this video. I didn't plan it out. Even so, it's a subject that needs to be touched on. Because, Asperger syndrome a lot of times is not very well understood. And there are a lot of stereotypes that people have about Asperger syndrome. And it goes without saying that stereotypes in general are at least based on some truth. They might be very gross exaggerations of truth. In some cases, they might be extreme exaggerations of truth. But stereotypes are still kind of based on some truth. And so it is with people who have Asperger syndrome. Excuse me. I swear I'm not dying on you right now. I just came from my friend Link's house, and he has cats and dogs and this and that, and animal hair and dander everywhere, and because of that, my lymphocytes are just like, fuck you, Mike, you'll pay for this! And they're just attacking my histamine receptors like mad, so bear with me. Anyway, as far as stereotypes about Asperger syndrome goes, I can mention a few of my own. I'm on the computer right now, even researching some of those stereotypes that, quote-unquote neurotypical people have about people with Asperger syndrome. And apparently there's a crap load of them. A lot of them. When I was just talking about stereotypes about Asperger's being popular in the media, or, TV and movies and this and that, and I could point out a few examples. Like I could, when you think of somebody with Asperger's, I guess in movies or TV, you could think of somebody like Kramer from Seinfeld, who's I guess very intelligent in some ways, but he's very eccentric and he has very poor social skills. And yeah, I guess that sort of fits the description of somebody with Asperger syndrome. And you can think of what's that stupid show? No offense to anybody who likes the show. I never got into it. The Big Bang Theory. What's that character, Sheldon, on it? I guess it's still up for debate whether or not that Sheldon has Asperger syndrome. But it's believed to be true that he has Asperger's. And I remember my mom being like, "Oh, Mike, you gotta watch this show called The Big Bang Theory. You'll love it. One of the characters has Asperger's, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, all right. And I watched it. And I'm like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. It's not funny at all. And she's like, "Oh, no, you gotta watch it more than once. It's really funny, blah, blah, blah." So I watched it, a couple more times, and it's just, in my opinion, I'm sorry, it's just not a funny show. And the character Sheldon in it, he doesn't really seem like somebody in it, somebody who actually has Asperger's syndrome either. He's very nerdy, which is very stereotypical Asperger's. He's into science, I guess, and a lot of stereotypical. It's very stereotypical for people with Asperger's to be into the sciences and the engineering and this and that. And that's another stereotype about people with Asperger's, is that it's said that they typically make very good engineers and research scientists because they are very analytical and they tend to be very brainy with certain aspects of this and that, and they work better alone than with others. And I've even heard that among engineers, and I might be wrong about this. If you're an engineer, please, correct me if I'm wrong. But I heard that among engineers, it's actually a big joke that all engineers have Asperger syndrome, or Asperger's is the engineer's disease or whatever. And I guess it would make some sense because, people with Asperger syndrome, a lot of times, they do work better alone than with others. Not because they don't socialize, but because they don't socialize well. They don't really have very good social skills, so people misjudge them, or they misjudge other people, and this and that. So a lot of times, they like to work better alone than in groups. And of course, there are exceptions to that. But a lot of times, that's kind of the rule rather than the exception. Let's see. Let me cheat and look at the computer for a second and find more stereotypes about Asperger syndrome. Okay. Cannot do things that require social interaction, especially with strangers. I just kind of covered that one. That's not necessarily true. Dislikes using the telephone, preferring email or person-to-person instead. I can only speak on my own behalf. That's not necessarily always true, although with email or chatting online, it's a lot easier, simply because I guess I don't feel as on the spot, and I'm not actually looking at the person that I'm interacting with, so I can just easily type what I'm feeling, whereas when I'm talking to somebody, I'm looking at them in the eyes, and it's tough interacting is different than interacting online. Even for somebody who doesn't have Asperger's, that's just kind of how it is. Let's see. In social situations with a lot of noise and conversations, has trouble hearing and easily gets disoriented. With me, that's very true. My hearing is fine. It's perfect. I've gone to the doctors, got my hearing test and vision test and all that stuff. My hearing is great. However, I'm the kind of person that if you're talking to me and you say something, I might be like, what? You say that again? I might have you repeat it 5 or 6 times in a row so I can hear it. Not because I'm having, and bear with me, this is hard for me to describe, but not because I have a hard time understanding what you're saying, but because it just sounds like it comes out, blah, 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 and I have a hard time breaking it down to words to where it registers. It's hard to describe, but especially with background noise, I have a hard time blocking out background noise and actually listening to what people are saying. I don't have time to go through all this stuff. Like I said, this is very unprepared. I'm doing this video at the moment, spur of the moment. But stereotypes about Asperger's, people say that we're dorks, we're geeks. A lot of times we are, sometimes we're not. And just like any group of people on the planet, some people who are part of a group fit the stereotypes, some people don't. And it's the same with people who have Asperger syndrome. I'm a total geek, believe it or not. I'm a nerd. I get very absorbed in whatever it is that interests me. I'll get lost in it to where time and space just lose all importance, all matter. And actually, not to jump back to this list that I'm reading, but it says talks forever without pause about favorite topics. Well, at times that is me. This video is an exception. I know I made it like a lot of excuses with the last video. Oh, I recorded and I didn't record, or it feels like I'm just being an ass by making exception after exception, excuse after excuse. But a lot of times that is what happens with me. This one says is easily depressed. Well, I guess everybody's easily depressed, depending on the situation. Some people are more prone to depression than others. Yeah. I think I'm just going to use this as a practice video. It's not really turning out very well. So, I'll probably do this tomorrow. Sounds like the best plan. Goodbye.